Hey y'all, happy Sunday and welcome to this week's live Q&A session. This is the portion of the show where we allow YouTube to send out notifications that we're going live. If you're watching this live Q&A on replay, please scrub ahead until this graphic disappears and the actual show begins. If you're watching live and you have any comments or questions, please go ahead and put them in the live chat. But for now, grab a beverage, sit back, and relax while the countdown timer does its thing. Then we'll get started. Happy Sunday, everybody. Hope everybody's doing well. And hope everybody down in Florida is doing better. South Carolina, I mean, all y'all that were affected by Hurricane Ian. Um, I hope I hope your recovery is going as smooth as it possibly can. I've got some friends in South Florida that weathered everything okay. They were on the opposite side of the peninsula from where it made landfall, and everybody there is okay. I mean, they had some rain and a little bit of wind, but not nearly as bad as those who took the brunt of it. So, still haven't heard from one up in Central Florida. I'll be checking in with him again today to figure out what's going on up there. But other than that, let's uh, let's count our blessings while we have them, because things can go sideways in a real quick hurry. So our hearts go out to you, folks. Yeah. On another note, I'd like to give a shout out to a channel member who I don't see in the chat. If you're there, let me know you're here. I'm talking about Bob Hiltebridle, guy that I've quoted several times during these live streams, poster of all things funny and rude, crude, and socially unacceptable. He sent me what has to be the coolest tape measure I have ever seen in my life. I mean, I dig it. This is really cool. Thank you, Bob. And I've checked it against 4 or 5 other tape measures, and it is nice and accurate. And yeah, thanks. I mean, I appreciate that. That is now the official tape measure of Mark Lindsay CNC. This is great. I mean, I knew when I made that logo, it was going to be something simple, easy to basically copy, and be interesting to make some wall art with it. And I've got a wall art project for the back wall back in here. I just got to get everything else out of here before I get it made and put up. And of course, I will be doing a video on it. Why wouldn't I? I mean, I'm going to be doing things about projects. Speaking of projects, I don't know if you can see it back there, but you see a piece of MDF on the CNC table. This afternoon, I will officially start testing my tool paths for the Pirate, and I'm going to do a complete pour in that MDF piece right there. I've got to test everything out before I do the actual project. So this is going to be a test of my tool paths, my epoxy mixing capabilities, and getting tints figured out and making sure I've got color saturation right and everything else. And I figured nothing better than scrap MDF to go ahead and try that. And so I won't be doing a video on the testing. I will post pictures over on Instagram and possibly on Facebook. I I don't know. I believe there are links to Instagram and Facebook down in the description of all of my videos. I'm not certain. I'll go through and check. But that's where I'll be posting pictures of my progress is over on those 2 platforms. And then when I do the actual carve in the actual piece of material I have picked out for this project, there will be videos on that. So this is going to be the way I have the tool paths calculated and grouped and the G code generated. This is going to be done over a period of 6 days. So pour whatever color it happens to be and carve, then pour, let it sit overnight, then carve the next colors and pour, let that sit overnight, etc. for 6 days, then come back and surface the entire thing. And do the quote unquote reveal. So we'll see how that turns out. Um, I constantly preach to test things out in scrap, and that's exactly what I'm doing. I firmly believe in practicing what I preach. So that's coming soon, and we can finally wrap up that project. I have done a couple of other projects on the CNC one I've got over here that I need to finish and get done for my wife, and just a lot of things going on in the background. There, I was supposed to have a video up this week, but as I said in my posts on social media, I had some family things go on here in the background, and real life just kind of got in the way. So I didn't end up having enough time to get the video shot completely. I got it about half done, and didn't have time to edit it and get it posted. It will not be coming next week because next week I'll have a special guest. More on that a little bit later on. Right now, I've kind of rattled enough, so let's go ahead and get into some questions. I only have one so far, and it's going to be a very short answer. So if you have any questions at all, please feel free to put them in the chat. And that question is from Jim Brown, and he wants to know, can you show me how to use the box creator? And the short answer is no. I can't. The long answer is I have never used the box creator. And I'm going to assume that you're talking about the gadget. Um, and we'll go ahead and go over to Aspire. Now, this is a VCarve Pro and Aspire only um, option. When you have a project open over here and the menu opens up fully, one of the options is for gadgets. Gadgets are, again, only available in VCarve Pro and Aspire. Um, I'm not certain about Cut 2D Pro. I've never used Cut 2D, so I don't know if it's available. Um, but they are basically small apps, let's call them, that work with VCarve Pro and Aspire to allow you to expand capabilities within the software. They are not created necessarily by Vectric. They could be created by third parties, and some of them are approved and endorsed by Vectric as being real handy. Others are just kind of there in the background, and there are a bunch of them. If you are going to use gadgets, however, let me warn you, make sure you download a gadget that's compatible with your version of the software. Not all gadgets are. So if you have a gadget in version 10 or 10.5 that works fine and you upgrade to 11, that version of that gadget may not work with version 11. So uh, try to get the most up-to-date gadget for the version of the software you're using. And just looking at what I have here, I've got like DXF batch processor, Celtic Weave creator, or drag knife toolpath, things of that nature. I don't even have the box creator gadget. So I can't really help you as far as learning how to use it. I am, however, going to be getting into gadgets probably later on next year, as I do get a lot of questions on them. So I'm going to start getting into some of these gadgets, and the box creator is one of them. So for right now, I can't help you with that, but I certainly will. Probably again later next year. So let's see here. We got a few more in, and Bob showed up. I showed off your tape measure a little earlier, Bob. Thank you very, very much for that. It's the official tape measure of Mark Lindsay CNC. So, okay, let's see here. Rodney says, love working with epoxy. I think you will enjoy it. I have done some epoxy work in the past. I've just not done it with multicolored epoxy on one single piece of material. I've carved out areas leaving raised artwork and then backfilled, but I've never actually carved back into the epoxy and applied more color. So this is going to be my first experience with that. And thankfully, I have Rob Sandstrom and Shane Peters to thank for all of the knowledge that they've shared with me. And Rob and Shane, I know neither one of you are here, but thank you both. So let's see here. John Lackey wants to know, how do you combine a 3D scene model with a frame model? Okay, well, that comes back to combine modes and your component tree within the modeling tab. Let me go back over here to Aspire, and we'll throw a real quick, let's go into the clip art here. And let's see, do we have any? I would guess maybe it's in decorative. Let's look here and see if we have any frames that I can. Yeah, let's go ahead and, well, let's see, there's a rectangular frame right there. Okay. Let's adjust this, hold down shift and kind of bring it out like so. Whoa, there we go. That's all right. And now we'll find something to throw in here. I don't know. I will find objects and people. Let's find something that is, all right, let's go with this anonymous statue. Now it's a little bit big, so I'll reduce it in size. And this is not how I would put together a model. I would adjust this so it's the same size as the material and then kind of center this up better. But for demonstration purposes, this will work. Now, if you look, what I have here is the flourish, which is this frame, which is also made up of several different constituent components. Then I have my statue here as well. Now I'm looking in the 2D view at this. If I come over to the 3D view, we can see what that looks like. So I have my scene placed in the center. Then I have my frame around it. Now, if this scene filled this entire panel, it wouldn't really make a difference in that it's all based on my combine modes. Now, as it sits right now, I have both of these set to add because they don't interact with one another. They're basically two separate components that are well spaced. Now, if this frame was going to sit on top of this statue, I would have to maybe do a merge combine mode, and simply by right clicking, no, I wouldn't do it. I would do it with the, yes, I would do it with the statue. Simply right click and go into the combine mode and change that to merge. It's not necessary in this instance, simply because there is this separation here. But that is the simplest way to combine a frame element with another scene within that element, or excuse me, within that component. The other thing to remember is the software models from the bottom up. So if they did interact with one another, if the statue was placed down here in the list below the frame, there may be some issues where they meet. You're trying to have two pieces merge at the same place. If one is sitting on the other, it's going to react one way, but if the other is sitting on top of the one, they're going to interact in a different way. So just remember that the software models from the bottom up, and you should do just fine. Again, here in the 3D view, that's how it's going to look with a blank background, the statue, and then the frame around it. So it's getting into where you place the model, what order the models are placed here in the component tree rather, and what you set your combine modes for. So John then says, I have a lake scene that I want to use a frame model with. The lake scene will be next to the inside of the frame. Should I merge then? Probably. And in your case, where it's going to be butted right up against the frame or possibly even overlapping a little bit, your lake scene should be first on the list, then the frame on top of that. And then the combine mode set to merge. And I'm going to move this on purpose just to show you why. Let me, put it into move and transform, and I'm going to put it down here so that they do interact. Now, looking at the 3D view, I have my combine mode for these two set to add. So what it's doing now is it's taking this frame and it's adding that statue on top of the frame. They're not combining at all. The frame isn't sitting on top of the scene that I've got here. If I drag this down, it doesn't change that. It just, now I have the statue still projected up above the frame. Whoops, didn't mean to move it, but that's okay. But if I change the combine mode to merge and the combine mode here to merge, now I'm going to have to do a little bit of adjusting because you can see I've got this green, which is an area of that statue that's poking through the frame. But I can do that by moving on this one. I can bump that. No, I can't either. Come on, move and transform mode. There we go. Now I can move that up slightly and hide that toe in this thick part of the frame. If I couldn't do that, I would have to adjust my thicknesses within the properties window up here. I would have to either make the frame thicker or make the model thinner. You could also apply tilt or fade or something of that nature, but the whole point is to blend it all in. Now I've still got a little bit of something here running into the edge bead here, so I would want to adjust my thicknesses. So you see that the difference made by not only the position here in the component tree, but your combine mode as well. It's okay if your frame overlaps your lake scene, but do know that you may have to adjust your shape height, things of that nature. Like I could come over here and highlight my flourish, select my flourish rather, and bring my shape height up to, let's say, 0.3 and allow that to update. My frame's now thicker, close that, and I've got less interference here. Does that make sense? The foot doesn't interfere as much with this area of the frame. So I hope that answers that question. And thank you for that question too, because that's not something that I tend to reinforce as much as I should. But that in a nutshell is how to get the two components to interact with one another. So, all right. Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that answered the question. So, okay. Here, boy, we got a lot of questions came in here while I was answering that. Let's see. Tiny House Way, how do I tell VCar Pro or Aspire clamp placement so that the clamps are carved around and not through? That is a balancing act. Basically, you can control where the spindle goes while it's cutting, but not so much while it's making rapid moves, because the software is going to take the shortest path between 2 points. So if in this case, for instance, come back over here to Aspire, in this case, go into the 2D view, it's a little bit easier to see. If I have my origin set down here to the bottom left corner, and it's going to come up and start carving in this area first, and I have a clamp right here, there's nothing I can do to change that. Basically take steps to keep those clamps away from where this tool is going to go. And I have found that the easiest way to do that, personally, I don't use clamps, but because I don't trust them. But what I have seen other people do is use side pressure clamps with spacers. Rob Sandstrom over on his channel has some great examples of that, and I will find one of his videos. And in fact, Russ Tyndall at Blue Line Wood Flags has some great ones as well. So I'll make a note to myself to find a couple of their videos where they demonstrate that specifically, and I'll link them down in the comments, or excuse me, down in the description of this video. And basically put what you're doing is you mounting your material against an edge, a right angle edge on one corner, then putting in a piece of spacer material around your material. So in this case, I'd put a spacer here and a spacer here, and then those clamps sit way outside, way away from the material, so that the spindle and the bit doesn't get over that area. Now, Rob Sandstrom also has a video on how he mapped his spoil board surface so that he could place screws or place fixtures or what have you, and avoid T-track, avoid threaded inserts, things of that nature. So he wasn't drilling through a piece of material straight into a piece of T-track or something of that nature. I'll go ahead and I'll link that video in the description as well. There we go. And I've made a note uh, to do that as soon as we're finished live here. And hope that answers that. Let's see. IL Peleg says, or take a small rectangle, place it on the foot, and set it to subtract. Okay, talking about with the that was the one option on the 3D models to change certain areas to subtract. But Michael Keymont says use clamps made from wood whenever possible. That is very that's a good option as well. And in fact, I don't know. I have a love-hate relationship with clamps. I don't trust them. I just don't. I've seen them fail. I've seen people run into them, and it's also not only a case of hitting the clamp. It's a case of hitting that fastener, that hold down, that clamp hold down, when the bit lifts up and makes a rapid move. I've seen people hit hardware that they were using to hold clamps down and just damage a bit, damage a machine, damage the clamps. um let's see here. Peter Van Vliet says, or use vacuum pods and avoid mechanical clamps altogether whenever possible. Yeah, that's true. And I like I said, I don't use clamps. Now, for the most part, there are some places where I do use clamps, but they're in temporary situations. Like I'm going to have to make a new one to match this spoil board. It's still from my Gatton CNC. I have a straight edge guide that is lined up perpendicular with the front of the table, and another basically a straight bar with two vertical toggle clamps. And I'll put that vertical bar with the toggle clamps on first, then put up my straight edge and put a finished sign or something like that down on the table, tight up against that straight edge guide, and then bring my clamps down, tighten everything down, and then hold down that project when I'm doing a keyhole. But we're talking about a tool path that starts out about right above where the keyhole is going to be cut, then moves down to the bottom of that keyhole, drops in, moves up, comes back, lifts up, and then goes back to right about the center of where that keyhole is. So there are really no rapids that I have to worry about with that one particular tool path. So I'm comfortable using clamps with it. But generally speaking, I'm out with tape and CA glue. And if the project's too big for that to be effective, I screw it straight to the spoil board. I don't baby my spoil board. I figure it's there to take the brunt of all the heavy work by the bits. That's its purpose. So I don't baby it. Um, LB Sharp says, in Vectric, I always drag my mouse over the area that cuts near the edge and make notes so I know where not to put clamps. And that's a good option as well. I know some people who will actually map out where they're going to put screws. If they're going to screw a panel down to the table, they'll go ahead and draw a circle in each corner that represents where those screws are going to be, so they can place their artwork or their design in an area where the bit will not touch the screw. Then of course you gotta, when you go out and mount your material, you got to make sure you put that screw in that spot so it doesn't get hit. So let's see here. Come back over to Jeff. What do you want? Does anyone have any issues with Vectric version 11 when upgrading from Windows 10 to Windows 11? I have not upgraded to Windows 11. None of my computers are eligible for that. And that's fine. I think Windows 10 is just fine. Um, I have a love-hate relationship with Windows. It seems that ever since Windows 98, every other version of Windows has really been a stinker. I mean, we went from Windows 98 to Windows ME, which was a total dud. And from there to Windows XP, that everybody at first hated, then fell in love with. Then what was it? It was 8.0, or no, it was Vista, which was a dud. Then 8.0, which was a dud. Then 8.5 fixed the dud of 8.0, but you get my drift. So we're at Windows 10, that's okay right now. 11's come out. I've not heard good, bad, or indifferent. I know people are reluctant to change. I'm one of them. Um, I figure if it works, don't fix it. So, yeah, that's what can I say? Uh, so if anybody has had any issues with updating uh, to Windows 11, if they've had any issues with the Vectric software, please, uh, speak up. And I also might add, report those issues to Vectric. That's how they come up with bug fixes and what have you. If there's an issue, go to the Vectric website and send an email to their support, and because they can't fix it if they don't know it's broke. So if there's an issue, report it. See, Blake Williamson says, made a simple vacuum table for my CNC, all MDF, and works fantastically. Only downside is need a separate shop vac. Yeah, that is the case. Now, let me ask you this, Blake. I know some people use shop vacs, and all you folks with uh, vacuum tables, do you use vacuum pumps or do you use shop vacs? And if especially if you have used both, what is the noise difference? Because I know my shop vac will run me out of here even with a headset on. It's a loud son of a gun. That's why I went with this dust collector. And the dust collector is loud too, but nothing like that shop vac. So if you're using a vacuum pump or something like that, um, let me know what is the difference in noise. I don't really have a need for a huge vacuum table, but I would like to get into some vacuum pods. So, and Blake says a vacuum pump is way quieter. Okay. Okay, cool. And thank you for that. I appreciate it. Okay, a lot of people saying the upgrade to Windows 11 went well with version 11. So thank you for that. Michael Mazalik says I use a fine shop vac for my vac table, not much of a noise issue. Yeah, not all shop vacs are created equal. I too used in the last solid surface countertop shop I worked at, we had a fine random orbit sander with the dust extracting shop vac. And I couldn't believe how quiet that thing was. I mean, obviously it made noise, but you could carry on a conversation without yelling over the top of it. It was a really uh, nice setup. Expensive, but nice. So, Michael Keymont says, put a wind filter on that dust collector. Well worth the cost. Just did mine and it works great now. That dust collector is going to be moved outside and that'll be the end of that. So I just got to get that built. I've started clearing it, clearing the area out there to get going on it. It's just other things have taken precedence. Let's see. Ronald Cool wants to know what kind of epoxy and color did you get and what are the cost. I'll do that. I'll do an entire video on that with the pirate video. I'll do a whole breakdown on that. And I don't know how well that's going to work because prices have changed dramatically since I ordered the epoxy and all the colorants, all the tints and stuff, but that will all be in the pirate video. So, let's see. LB Sharp says I may have to send you another video to help solve another problem. Have not got my Z fixed in Mach 3 offsetting after tool change. Okay. Yeah, go ahead, LB. Yeah, that's fine. Let's see here. Oh, you sent that question twice. All right, gotcha. Something to think about, Blake. I was in the Army for too many years, and part of that was in Army aviation. And we wore headsets out on the flight line, some of them with the boom mic, some of them were just blank dummy headsets for hearing protection. And we used the foam earplugs as well as the over-the-ear headset. And obviously out on the rifle range, we couldn't wear the over-the-ear headset. We just used the little foam rubber, stick it in your earplugs. And that helped out there on the range. But out on the flight line, different frequencies will penetrate different forms of hearing protection. So having both kind of restricted the noise damaging sound waves. And that helped a lot. I still have like a 10% hearing loss in this ear, but none in this. And aircraft are loud. So, I mean, stepping up to the spindle, even though it's an air-cooled spindle, and this big dust collector, I'm here to tell you the noise level has really dropped. Even going through some video that I'm editing that where I was carving, the loudest single element is that dust collector. And even then it's not all that loud. So I don't have to go to the point to where I'm using earplugs and an over the ear defenders, I guess you'd call them. It really helps out a lot. But yes, you've only got one sense of hearing and you got to keep it. You got to protect it. So excuse me. Let's see. Leo Stigger says, howdy, Leo. I haven't seen you in a while. I saved a vector drawing as an SVG, copied it to a project in VCarve, tried to nest it, chose the vector. However, it says no vector chosen. Do you know why? No, I don't. And that is because not all SVG files are created equally. It depends a lot on the program you saved it in. It depends on the settings, the SVG settings within that program. I mean, there are so many variables with SVG files. I, generally speaking, don't like using them for that reason. If the program you edited that SVG or exported that SVG in, if it allows it, try exporting in a different format. Now, Russ Tyndall over at Blue Line Wood Flags showed in one of his videos, and I've got to be honest, I don't remember which one it was. And I've asked him to make a video on it. He used Adobe Illustrator, and he modified his fill and stroke settings and then exported it as an AI file, then imported it into, I believe he uses VCarve Pro, and it was perfect. So there is that option. Try saving it as a different format. Not again, not all SVGs are created equal. Some are absolute messes, and some are just beautiful. And it may have something to do with your settings, the SVG export settings in the program that you're using. But um, uh, you might try an AI file if that will work. You might also try an EPS. I know Michael Mazalik is watching. I don't know if you have a preferred format for exporting artwork for import into VCarve. Yeah, but I mean, uh, DXF is a good option if that's available to you. EPS is good. An AI is good. I mean, even a PDF is better than nothing. So, but I, generally speaking, don't like SVG files. Michael Keymont says, for what it's worth, Inkscape outputs usable vectors using its default output settings for SVG, and it's free. Okay, I know I know just enough about Inkscape to be dangerous. So, okay, yes, Michael Mazalik says he prefers EPS files. So yeah, just try a different format. I mean, uh, I'll give you one example. I don't remember which website it was on, uh, but it was a California government website where you can go down and you can go in and download vector files of the seal of the great state of California. But when you import those vectors, there are a lot of single lines. If you there, it's an SVG file, and it's a lot of single lines. But if you open that SVG file in like Inkscape or something like that, you have nice, clean, clear vectors. It's the settings within that SVG. It'll be a single line that is supposed to be a stroke of a certain diameter, so it looks like a nice, pretty vector, but it's not. It's just a single line when you import it into VCarve, and it's a mess. It's an absolute mess. So, what can you say? IL Peleg says also SVG or text files, so you can open them in Notepad and try to remove parts of them and find what's causing the problem. I did not know that. I did not know that they are text files. Also, apropos of absolutely nothing whatsoever, some files with an SVG file extension are actually playlists for, I don't remember which one it is, but there's a media player that uses SVG as the file extension for their playlists. So, let's see here. Dean Webb says, wondering what size your new shop is. Looks nice and plenty of lighting. Thank you. That's a good thing. It's a very good thing. But as you can see here, I keep forgetting to turn off the two rear lights when I go live, so I get a lot of haze back there. But it is basically, it is 12 foot wide, 16 feet long, and it's filling up fast. So thank you. I appreciate the compliment, and it's been a work in progress. I'm not quite ready for an update on the shop shed build. I've just been doing a lot of small things, and mainly customizing as tools come in and leave. Probably the next shop shed video will be the lean-to on the back. And when I say lean-to, people have asked me about it. Lean-to shed, in that's the roof style is lean-to. It will be fully enclosed and it will have a floor, but it's just going to be a separate structure attached to the back and of this shed, and that's where the dust collector and my compressor are going to live. And that's basically because I don't have room in here. So, let's see. Stephen Main says when using a shop vac for the vacuum table, be sure the motor in the shop vac has a separate cooling fan, as there is virtually no airflow when using a vacuum table and the motor can overheat. Good point. Yeah, if the cooling fan is a part of the motor with no airflow coming in from that vacuum hose, that can really overheat, and especially with today, with the, let's say, reduced cost of everything, and plastic bushings are now being used a lot more often. Graphite impregnated plastic, but plastic just the same. Yeah, I have lost more shop vacs due to overheating and bearing failure than anything else. But they're not even using bearings now. They're just using graphite impregnated nylon if they go that far. And it's simply, well, there are two causes of that. Number one is us. We don't want to pay $300-400 for a shop vac. We want to pay 65. And also planned obsolescence. If they sell you a shop vac that's going to outlive you, you'll only buy the one. And, you know, we can't have that. So this is why we can't have nice things. So, because we won't pay for it, and they don't want to sell us one that'll last our entire lifetime. So, let's see here. Blake says, I'm using 3M work tunes and they are off, some almost eerily quiet. That's something that has always mystified me there, Blake. And I'm not saying that this is what you do, but people will talk about hearing protection in the shop, hearing protection in the shop, hearing protection in the shop, and they put in earbuds and blast music to protect their hearing in the shop. Just to be silly, I guess. I don't know. Um, Stephen Main says, I believe the Find does have a separate cooling fan, and Michael Mazalik confirms that. Yes, it has two fans. Okay. Okay. Let's see. Whoops. Nope. Wrong one. Randy Roberts says, wish I would have gotten that fancy Avid nameplate when I got mine. Psst, you have a CNC router. Make one. Make one. I've been toying with the idea of making my logo for this side, but uh, subscriber Mark Rules. I'm using my cursor like you can see it. I've been thinking about making another nameplate for this side right here, but subscriber Mark Rules sent me this cool epoxy logo there, so I mounted that with some of that 3M tape. What is it? VXB, VBX, VBM. I can't remember what it is. So. Todd HCNC says, well, if you're going to lose your hearing, might as well be something good. Yeah, true. One of the signs I want to make says, I don't always listen to AC/DC, but when I do, so do my neighbors. But we'll see. Wade Custance, work tunes limit the dB of music volume. Yeah, okay, true. That I just think it's ironic that folks will want to protect their hearing by playing music. You know, I'll put it to you this way. My wife is a bagpiper, and I can tell you from personal experience, every bagpiper and family member wears earplugs when they play because they are loud and there's no way to adjust the volume. So, and I know a lot of musicians who, when they're performing on stage, they wear earplugs as well for that reason. So, Michael Keymont says, I worked in the noise cancellation department for Bose for almost 20 years. I may have to send you an email because I'd like to do a little bit more noise insulation on the shop shed here. It's pretty good. I have a neighbor, he's worse than I am, and this is absolutely completely out of the scope of anything we've been talking about. This neighbor is worse than I am. I say I turn into a 5-year-old when I fire up the CNC and hit cycle start. I just that little thrill of the success hasn't left yet. He's even worse. When I was still using the Gatton CNC with the Porter cable router, it was loud as heck. The minute he heard that router kick on, he would be over standing in the doorway watching. I've told him several times, look, I'll help you build one. Nope, don't want one. I'll just come over and watch yours. So if I turn into a 5-year-old, he turns into a 3-year-old because I mean, he's right over there watching that sucker. He's fascinated by it. So, well, he's cheesed off because this is so much quieter. He can't hear it. So now I see him kind of popping around the edge of his driveway. He's about 2 houses down from me, looking out to see if I'm out here in the shed. So, but I don't know. It's just one of those things. Okay, let's see here now. We've been almost an hour, and I think I got to everybody's question. If I missed your question, please let me know. But I am, yeah, and there she is. There's my better half right there. Bagpipes, 110 decibels at 10 feet from the end of the chanter. I wear earplugs so I don't have to listen to it. Yeah, well, yeah. So, like I said, pipers and their families wear earplugs while they're being played. Uh, go ahead and just start winding this down now, and by letting you know that next week I'm going to have a special guest here, and that special guest is Russ Tyndall from Blue Line Wood Flags. And like an idiot, I did not bring up his website until right now to show you the kind of projects that we're going to be discussing. Now, whoops, wrong one. Stop sharing that, and let's share this one. Pardon me for this is the type of project that Russell puts out, these thin blue line wood flags with the various patches and military insignia, police, fire, EMS, and that is his specialty. And we're going to talk about how he does these brilliant carvings. And he's going to give us some tips, tricks, and just basically share his experience. He is also the gentleman who created the very cool hose bracket that I have up above right there on the CNC. He's going to be my special guest next week, and we're going to probably dive into more than he's ready to dive into. But same bat time, same bat channel. That's right here, noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. A lot of V carving coming up and a lot of discussion about how he got into this specialty and take it from there. So if you have any questions on uh, overlapping 2D carvings and vectors and V carving and different bits involved and combining artwork and things of that nature, gather those questions because I'm going to get Russell to try to answer all of them. So that'll be next week. The week after that, I hope to have at least some progress on the pirate to share with everybody. We'll see how that happens. But for now, oh, and I put a link to Russ's YouTube channel down in the video description. And I will go back over to his channel and try to find some examples of him using the spacers to keep his spindle away from his work material while it's clamped in. And I will also find the link to Rob Sandstrom's video on mapping his spoil board to help kind of um, help you avoid like T-track and fasteners and things of that nature. Uh, Rich asked me, do you have a tutorial on carving a dish, say 6-inch diameter, 3/4 deep, or something close? Not right now, but one will be coming soon because I'm going to be making something very similar to that. So not right at the moment, but I will soon. Okay, Michael Keemont. Rockwell insulation is about the best bang for you can buck you can get for noise. All right. Thank you very much, Michael. I appreciate that. All righty. Let's go ahead and call this one a wrap. Again, next week, Russ Tyndall from Blue Line Wood Flags. And until then, yeah, y'all take care. Go do something cool. Go make some chips. There's still a little time left. Me, I'm going to start, hopefully, carving on a pirate this afternoon. We'll find out if that actually comes to fruition. Y'all have a great rest of your week. Enjoy. Stay safe, everybody, and I'll see you next week.